You got music and everything?
Yeah, my the Speaking Of podcast official music.
Is it gospel airs?
No.
The gospel airs. Yes.
Turn on a trip.
Couldn't get the permission.
Doug. Good old Doug. Right there. Good old Pops.
Welcome to the Speaking Up podcast. Here we are. Go live. Let's get this thing live up on Facebook here for.
The music's pumping me up.
Isn't it? Isn't that got a nice little vibe?
Here does a podcast. I love it.
Yeah. Gonna just get this on Facebook.
We were all just sitting still a second ago.
Yeah, weren't we?
Now just
Now we're grooving and jiving.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, the obligatory wait a minute for Facebook to catch up.
Yep.
That's underwhelming.
The new reality.
Yes, I know, eh? We all live through Facebook. I still haven't restarted my personal.
Nope.
Personal.
I'm 10 years off Facebook.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I wish I was.
Even in this.
And I refuse to do TikTok. You can't be over 35 and have a TikTok account. You just can't.
Amen. Come on.
Preach.
No, not at all.
There's some card you have to turn in if you are.
Yes.
Some kind of adult card or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mature adult.
You have surrendered your adult card if you've TikToked.
Yeah.
I had a staff member try to convince me I needed to put out get a TikTok account, and they're no longer with us.
My daughter wants me to get one so I can help her get more followers. And my son is scared to death I'm going to do a TikTok account.
Oh, no.
I will not. Hey,
And by no longer with us, you mean they're still alive.
Oh no.
green bubbly.
Are we gonna have to blur this out? Are they gonna?
Product placement?
Yeah.
If you're looking for a sponsorship, bubbly.
Yeah.
We aren't looking for sponsorship, but
No.
this is brought to you by.
No name.
Have
Period.
it blurred out. Absolutely. I think Bubbly will take it at this point.
It might cause more controversy if we blur it out.
Right.
You know, it's a day and age where people are so woke and so politically touchy that, you know, there's a day where, you know, no press is bad press. And if you're going to show my product on your show, please and thank you. Now,
Yes.
companies, you know, not so sure I want to be associated with those guys or this thing or that thing.
Well, my production guy wears a King's hat every time he does stuff for Nova. So you guys are sponsored us. He's looking for a sponsor, I think.
Oh, hey, maybe I had a
Tell him to
back
give us a call.
conversation with him.
Yeah.
I need you to wear the King's hat.
Mm-hmm. I will.
Awesome. Good deal. Welcome, guys. Just I got some people signing online here. Who do we have here? We got 3 people that I could not be more thrilled to talk to today. We got, of course, Pastor Dan Lamos up in here.
The legend, Lamos.
Legend. One.
Feeling legendary.
Star. And we got, let's see if I can get the applause track going here. Just a sec. I got a fun new game, ladies and gentlemen. I have a, oh, that wasn't the applause.
But fitting.
Yes. Okay, I think I got the applause now. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Anthony Moore to the
Let's
Speaking
go.
Of-
Yeah.
that was the canned lap.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
You got it. Awesome. And then, of course, super excited today to have my friend, pastor of Nova Church, all the way from Halifax, Nova Scotia, the one and only Mr. Mike Miller. Thank you, my friend.
Do I get a sound effect?
Yeah. Oh wait, no. I had the dreamboat.
I've gotten a week.
I had the dreamboat.
Oh,
There it is.
Yes, sir.
Very fitting right there.
That's right.
That's what happens in my heart every time I see you, Mike.
Sound of my
wow.
heart. Mhm.
Am I blushing right now?
I'm just hot. It's like 90 degrees in here. I'm really not blushing, but
Dear.
it's warm in here. It might be the headphones. I don't know. The cost of looking official, guys.
Buddy.
That's the price we pay. Well, welcome, guys. It's going to be fun to connect tonight. First, I wanted to just take a minute and just catch up on how, especially with Mike here, how everybody's doing, talk kind of Nova. I'd love to hear how Nova Church is doing. You guys are one of the great success stories in Canada as far as church plants go in the last couple of years. It's actually, sometimes I have to remind myself that you've only been a church for what, not even 2 years?
No, it'll be 3 years in September. Yeah, 2.5.
So it's
Wow.
and the reason I don't think of you as a new church in that category is you guys just kind of skipped the small new church thing.
And I'm so old. So.
Right. Well, that too. Yeah. I mean, you guys, the growth and the success of Nova has just been so admirable and remarkable. And I mean, you and Nancy deserve all the honor and credit in the world for, those things. I can only imagine. I've never planted a church. We've launched campuses, but I can only imagine what being the CEO, the visionary, the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, and the pastor, and all that round up into one. And then
truck loader,
all of it. And it's like, man, what you guys have done is just incredible. And honestly, it's just incredible. I brag about you and Nova. I've had so many conversations with guys across the country, even like just your name.
Yeah, and that's very, very kind, and I thank you. And you say that in private, so of course you say it in public because you say it in private. But again, I've said it before, and not that this is like a big bromance, though. I love these three so much. Last time we were together was at one conference in the tunnel at one conference.
Yes,
and my kids are still grieving one conference, so
I know.
But yeah, I said it before, but like for you guys, as church and other churches, but you guys are definitely, a huge part of it, of just breaking those glass ceilings and plowing new ground. And like, even when we were starting, like our kids ministry went out and visited one of your campuses for a weekend to just get ideas, and you're like, whatever you need. And, whether it was financial advice or whether it be gear or just calling you going, I just don't feel like preaching anymore. And just, anyway, you guys have just been, that's what I love, what's happening on the East Coast right now. And we have this band of brothers and sisters. This cool thing happened. So Nova is very much a success of Kings and other churches, very much so. And we feel that, right? So I think, one of our guys say it with Brewer or somebody says that we're not in competition, we're in cahoots, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
I feel that.
I think you guys live that out better than anybody I've seen. Like, it's incredible to think, people don't know this, but Nova Church isn't just scrambling to help, broadcast their own services, but they're helping multiple other churches, and again, it's like, it's one thing for an established church like us, people might not be as surprised to hear that us put that offer out, but the effort and the selflessness out of your people it's really incredible to watch.
We have amazing people. Amazing.
Real. Just you guys put out, like, it's just incredible what you guys accomplished and have accomplished. So
yeah.
Amazing. And people don't know this, but Mike and I really got to know each other in January. We were in London with our wives at an Alpha event, and that was,
well, we say it was Alpha, but we were over there trying to get One Direction back together.
That's true. Yeah, that was our real purpose.
We wanted to start it up and call it Wrong Direction.
Yeah.
Or Old Spice or something, and that was the real reason, but we covered it with Alpha Conference.
We couldn't find Harry Styles. Or no, who was the guy that left? Who was the guy?
First it was Harry, then Zane.
Zane.
I should have know everybody. Liam, I'm not going. Okay, I'm done. But
you have a teenage daughter, right?
Sure. Okay. Hey, I got a One Direction playlist. I'm just gonna throw it out there right now.
Hey,
get it out there.
No judgment.
London was a great trip, and our wives had a great time getting to know each other. That was so fun.
It was super fun. That was one small little grace I think God gave. Like Mel and I feel it was a real little grace that He gave us before this season.
Well, that was the first January, without going too heavy, too deep, but that I didn't lose motivation. I don't get depressed. I'm thankful, but I lose motivation. I'm happy. I just don't want to do anything. Yep. And it's the first January. Everybody else is like, let's go. New year, new me. And I'm usually like, I'm tired. It's the first January. I felt great. And I think a part of it was that adventure and just soul care and relationship that we had in London for that week.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I'm banking on the fact that I got COVID while we were there. I'm just really hoping all that international travel, it was breaking out. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's politically correct or not, but I'm pretty sure we boarded next to the Wuhan plane. So,
Well, Kenneth Copeland got rid of it all, so we don't have to worry about it.
Right.
man, yes, he did.
Yeah, you did.
I went there.
COVID. Yeah. Okay, let's go there. Let's go, not Copeland. Let's go on COVID. Let's go COVID for a minute. How are you guys? Do we pop the can? How are we feeling about COVID? How are we feeling about church response to it? But even like as a citizen of Canada, like are you guys as frustrated with everything as me? Can I say that? Are people going to judge me?
Dan, I'm gonna put you on the spot. How old are you?
I'm 58.
All right, so
We'll be 58.
you've seen some stuff.
Yep.
I find the older generation is more like, we don't care. Like, we've seen stuff.
hmm
You've seen some stuff. How frustrated are you right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely have been mildly to extremely irritated with how careful we are being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of my life, I have not been as careful as this, and yet I'm 58 years old.
Yeah, and looking good.
Hey, thank you very much. Oh, where's the music? Cue the soundtrack there.
You can't call for yourself. It doesn't-
I need some birds tweeting around my head. Right there.
That's not it. No.
Whatever, man. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, any of these sort of, wearing a mask and doing the precautions. I mean, I've cooperated and done my best, but it's an underlying hum that says, you know what, this really isn't going to make that much difference. We're going to survive this like we usually survive things.
Yeah.
And we're going to use our heads and we're going to trust in God.
Yeah.
And we're going to be stronger for it.
Yeah.
And some hard things are going to happen through it. I get afraid that that if we go down this route too many times, we're going to start forgetting what we've got in us.
Yeah.
We're going to start forgetting courage, and we're going to forget working together and finding, like, creating solutions for things instead of somebody having to tell us how to be careful and how to
Come
be
on.
smart. And
Right there. That's good.
kind of where I've been.
Yeah.
There's definitely some real psychological stuff that I think
Yeah.
we're underestimating what it means to, like, again, I know it's a complicated conversation, and there are people, I mean, I got in an argument with my own brother today about it. Like,
Yeah.
there are people on every side of the argument.
But wait a second. You argued with your own brother?
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
It's a sign of, that's a term of endearment in my family.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. The real me. Like, if I just,
Anthony knows where the bodies are buried. He knows.
if I just smile at you, that means I don't have a whole lot of, like, we're not super close. If
Yeah.
you're close to me,
And that's the theme of the greeting team at Kings.
Yeah.
just get it raw, get it real.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I think there's this thing that has always existed, and it's right up in our faces right now. Like, the world is not and never has been a safe place. It just flat out, it wants to kill you, right? And every time you step out the door, you're actually taking a calculated risk
Yes.
that something is going to happen to you. Now, granted, in our day and age, like in the West, we have it's a pretty much a low risk environment, but the reality is bad things happen all the time. And we're like, every time you go to a funeral and it's like a tragic thing, we know bad things happen, right? And I guess we need to, like, I'm all for doing my best, but I've been teetering on this, you need to talk me down off a ledge, in terms of like it's just been it's been half the time it's been infuriating and it's been frustrating that I've just like, but the world has never been safe. Like, really, it's never been safe. And the fact that it's sort of in the forefront now, and we're not sure what to do. And it's like, but when you say things like that, people look at you and say, you don't care about what's going to happen. I say, I do care, but it's still a risk, and it's complicated, and it's naive to say that we should lock ourselves in and wait until this thing passed. Like, remember when we were just flattening the curve? We were locking away. Well, the curve's flattened, And remember, like apparently we're locking ourselves away until this thing goes away. Well, that can't be, right? We can't actually shut ourselves down like that, because
I think the concerning thing is it's not going to go away, and just how much more time. I just don't know if we're counting the whole cost.
correct.
That's my fear. My fear isn't. I think it was wisdom at first. Like it
I do too.
clearly is a legitimately concerning thing. It's taken a lot of lives, and I don't want to downplay that. And to be a person who's like, you know, you're in your 80s or you've got health conditions, and I know there's some outliers out there too, that some people have got it that were perfectly healthy and it took them. And so, but that said, I don't know that we're counting the cost of what this is going to do to, like, my conversation. I think the conversation needs to circle around livelihood.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's about life. And there's a much more detail and much more dynamics to talk about than just, you know, epidemiology. And
I also think though, like, also, what are we producing in the next generation? And again, I echo you. It's been serious. It's real.
Yes.
You know, we have to be careful. And I get all that. We have to listen to I get all that. But like, I'm old enough. Like, I'm not a tough guy. I wear skinny jeans. You can't be a tough guy and wear skinny jeans, right?
And you like One Direction.
You just can't, right? but I do have that in me where I'm like, our grandparents fought wars, bought back, and I'm not against counseling. I see a counselor. I'm not against that. But like, they just kind of like, I'm gonna go in the woods and cut down some lumber and build a house for my family. I'll process what I saw. And today, like, you see the meme about COVID, like, we're going to tell stories like we were like I Am Legend walking down the road in the middle of an empty city. Yeah. But the reality is we're going to be laying on our couch looking at our phones. That's how we got through this. And like, our grandparents fought wars. We're trying to tell our kids not to eat Tide Pods. You know, like at some point I'm afraid that we're going to create this whole, I don't know. I just feel like, maybe it's just me as a guy, but I think even as a church making it spiritual, we're called to run to danger. And I'm not saying with no mask and not being safe, but I mean, there's got to be a part going, no, let's solve this. Let's be a part of this. Yes. Let's fix this. Let's go help people. Like, even when I hear Christians, and I get being safe, and I'm not talking about people that are vulnerable with health, but like, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. It's a little, I don't know. I'm like, where is the whole running to what everybody else runs from, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I just wonder about at what point do we need to. My biggest concern right now actually is how much the media is driving the dialogue and the perception.
Yeah.
And like, there's so much up in the air about, like, there's a lot of misconceptions about what the disease is, and there's a lot of mystery about what the disease is. And I feel like, you know, crisis headlines and the economy, the clickbait economy that frankly every large news outlet operates on.
Yes.
I mentioned this in my sermon today. You know, there's a podcast I listened to last week talking about how the mainstream media is built. It's built right now to literally capitalize on the fact that every human being has a negative news bias. Like, and if you don't think that's true of you, like if you go through a day and you have 100 compliments and one person says something negative about you, what do you go to bed thinking about?
Thinking about my love for One Direction, how you don't like it.
Exactly. That's all you're thinking about. Right. No, but there's a real, and like his whole argument was, you know, that's a safety mechanism. It's a safety mechanism that we all have in us. We have to beware of the threat. And the news and the journal, like the mainstream media and Facebook, like the loudest voices promote the crisis. They promote fear. And there's just it seems like there's not a lot of just balanced, healthy discussion. And then what you have is these political systems where we're in a democratic system, which I think of all of the, in the words of C.S. Lewis, of all of the, you know, inadequate human government systems, it's the best. But it's still inadequate. And I think you see, like, again, it goes with the flow of the populace. And now you have political leaders trying to do their best to figure out what to do. And they're too afraid, I think, to, what do you do? Like, I feel for our politicians, to be honest. Like, what do you do if you open things up and people start dying, then that's on you. And if you hold back like we are, and people are losing their jobs, losing their livelihood, losing their retirement,
and also dying because of depression, suicide, anxiety, all that stuff.
I don't even want to think about the child abuse and stuff that's going on right now. Like my kids live in a very healthy home, and like it's hard even for my kids in a healthy Christian home with two loving parents. I just can't imagine. I don't even want to think about it. What's going on in some of the homes in inner city St. John and inner city Halifax, where these kids were already on a watch list because their parents aren't looking after them, or they come in a broken home. Like, this is going to put them at way further risk than this disease is going to. So I just think there's way more to consider on all this. This is probably going to get us in trouble. People are going to.
Well, okay, right there. Let me just say this, and this is the thing, right, with social media, and it's super toxic, right? There is not enough reasonable public discourse where people don't point fingers and throw names around, like you're uncaring, you're a racist, you're greedy, you're ignorant, you're whatever you are, right? Because there is a side that you can choose to talk about and recognize merits in, that will automatically get things lobbed at, names and terms lobbed at you. And this has been a frustration of mine, is that there's not a place where you can actually have a reasonable public discourse on what do we actually do without fear of actually having labels thrown at you, right? When you're asking perfectly honest questions, right? And that's been a big frustration of mine. Right?
Yeah. Are we taking seriously the whole scope of the conversation? That's all I wonder. I don't think we are. Like, when we just think of the economics, like literally, if people aren't working, then production isn't happening. And like global economies, people need to make stuff. They need to actually produce. That's where money is paper. It's what that is associated with that gives it value. And so our money, like, it's gonna be meaningless, and it's just debt on debt that's we're gonna be paying off for anyway. It's concerning for sure. That said, it is what it is, and the voice of the church, I think we need to be, we shouldn't be quiet. We shouldn't be like, don't speak our position, but at the same time, I don't think it's our job either to be the people on the steps of Parliament with, unregistered.
I think it just creates, and again, I'm not saying being insensitive and being an opportunist. I'm not. But like, courage only makes sense when there's fear. Help is only wanted when people are helpless. I think the church rises to the top. Like the church should rise to the top. I think, from global pandemics to world wars with racism, I think the church should always, in those moments, not like everyone else. That's where we realize, do we actually have faith, or are we subject to the same fear based on the same media, or can we say this is fact? But like that old school, right? Like, the missionary mindset, I have to go. I don't have to come back, just there's a little bit of that going. The church should make more sense than ever before when there's conflict. Because in Scripture, every time there was promotion, most times promotion happened in the middle of conflict.
Totally.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
Can I just say this? And this is a little bit of a controversial thing. I feel like
Why not?
I feel like as a church that we've overvalued our own safety. Right? When we think about martyrs and we think about people who are willing to lay down their lives, what you said, right? I have to go and I don't have to come back. Like, there's something that's been lost in sort of the Western cushiness of things about the actual counting the cost of what it is to follow Jesus. And I don't mean to be reckless with your life, but I do mean that we hold our own safety in a tension to say that if I am called to go, that I will go, and even at the expense of my own life. And I'm not saying that we have to do that here, but I do feel like it's not something that we certainly don't talk about
Well, I think I don't want to glamorize our journey because we all have our journey. But like on this side of it, Nova Church makes sense. But when we started it, like we didn't have a cent, we didn't have a team, we had no one sending us. We had the district, but like we can't give you any money. I'm like, I don't want money, I want covering. And on this side, it makes sense. But I remember them saying to me, so how are you going to get paid? The district. And I was like, we'll take an offering the first Sunday, figure out what our costs are, and see if I can take some money home. And they're like, no, we've got to get you a plan. I'm like, there was no plan, but we didn't do this because it was easy.
Right.
And anything for God, whether it be stepping out, we're talking about Dan, you're 37 years married, stepping out going, I want to spend my life and trust somebody in a relationship. Having kids is a step of faith in this world.
Yeah.
Anything you do at some point, it's like faith and risk, you cannot separate them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to jump in on that and say, God's really been taking me to school during our whole reaction to COVID in the area of faith. And early on, I was sitting and just having my time with God, and I was thinking about faith, and I was realizing, wait a second, I live in a world where the same virus can shut down literally every nation in the world. Like I'm sitting here right now, knowing that the same virus has shut down the whole world. Okay, if I can have faith to accept that and say, oh yeah, totally, that's what's happening.
Virus that you can't see.
Yeah, a virus that I can't see is shutting down the whole world. Okay, if I can accept that, then I can believe that the Spirit of God is present in every nation of the world and can actually raise the tide of the manifest presence of Jesus in one day. That suddenly the whole world can be more aware than ever of King Jesus. And he was saying, you know what? It's the same faith mechanism. Like you're willing to accept a virus that you can't see, but I'm stretching your faith to believe in prayer again, to put your faith put the ingredient of faith back into your prayer, and believe me, to change things so rapidly, it will make people's heads spin.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I'm glad you mentioned faith, because I think that's huge. We're unaware of how much we live by faith, but we live by faith in lies often.
Well, that's why I think it's so important what you guys are doing as a church. You guys, I think there's a David. David's not a person so much, but a spirit. You guys are very much a David in this region, but it creates, to quote a great friend of ours and mentor, believability. But the faith level, again, once Nova happened, people are like, well, we can plant a church.
Yes.
Can we go multi-site like Kings? Oh, we can do it. We've seen it. One conference no one thought of it 3 years ago. No one thought it was possible. Now it's like, maybe we should do one. Why? Because once you do it, fear is not the opposite of faith. Fear is faith in the wrong source.
Right.
Faith and fear are both the same. They're both hoping for something that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And we have fear over this virus. We can have faith in the presence of God 100%.
Yeah, totally.
So how do we, as a church, I'm thinking like clearly the Lord this is not going to be wasted. Like, again, I think I'd love to move this conversation. It felt good to just have some honest dialogue surrounding just questions. I've been very quiet about it. Officially, I have questions about how we're handling this. Again, and I have doctor friends. This isn't totally ignorant. We have.
Man, we're doing our work, right? Like we're working with it.
Yeah, but we have two very high level doctors on our board. So we as a church were I think we were one of the first ones actually that we shut down. We're not messing around with this, but at the same time, as the curve has been flattened, and now we're just New Brunswick hasn't had a single case of it in quite some time. So, I've got some concerns about how this is rolling, but that's not my primary concern, really. I'm a citizen of New Brunswick and a citizen of Canada. That's a secondary citizenship. My primary citizenship is the kingdom of God. And my primary concern is, what are we as kingdom kids, as the church, how are we leveraging the full weight of this season onto what God is producing? Like, there's no such thing as a wasted trial. Scripture after scripture tells us, like, the testing of your faith produces perseverance, that fire refines unto gold. Like this is, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Like that's what this season is. This pressure is not going to be wasted.
Mhm.
So like, I'd love to have a conversation with you guys just on like, how are we seeing, even now, there's so much we don't know. That's one of the hard things about this season as a leader. There's so much we don't know, but there are things I'm seeing, senses we're having, how the Spirit's moving and what he's saying, and things that we're being forced to do and embrace as believers in the season, as church leaders. What are you guys seeing? What's this leading? What is this leading us unto? What are your thoughts?
For me, you go back 8-9 weeks ago, like, food only makes sense if you're hungry. Like my kids will say there's nothing in the house to eat until there's nothing in the house to eat. It's amazing how they'll eat those wheat crackers that they wouldn't have eaten when there was cookies. But once there's nothing and it's before grocery day, it's amazing how when you're hungry enough. And I just think like 9 weeks ago, what were people relying on? Their jobs, sports. They took out, they're like, man, I just can't wait to watch that game. Like if you travel at all, whether it be hockey or football, like, football is the biggest religion in America and biggest churches are their stadiums. What was our hope in? Movies and entertainment. It was in our friends and social circles. If I could just get with my friends and just living for the weekend, going out to clubs, going to pubs, everything that we relied on for coping, escaping, trusting in, relying on has been wiped out in 8 weeks. Everything.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity. It's a level playing field going. Now people are going, okay, I can't rely on that. And I realized I'm actually hungry. But I was snacking on these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I never noticed my hunger. And the statistics say people are Googling about prayer and God. People are tuning into our services that never would have before. Even right now, people have watched this and sharing this on Facebook, and people are tuning in going, who are these guys? What are they talking? But people are open that they weren't 9 weeks ago because the game was on, the golf tournament was on, they could go to their friends for barbecue season. It's just, I think there's an opportunity, that real hunger going, you know what? I don't think I was actually satisfied. Yeah. And I'm hungry. They're feeling that hunger. I think in the middle of this chaos, that's beautiful.
Yes.
That's where the church can't be just like, well, and even us as pastors, right? Like our Sunday morning was our strength, right? Like we know we're not a Sunday morning church, but let's be honest. It really pivots around Sunday morning because that's when we rally people and launch people, our giving, volunteers, kids ministry. That's been taken off the board.
Yes.
What a chance to really find out, number one, what matters, what you're hungry for, and engage culture.
Yeah.
Really good.
Definitely, speak to that, Mike. One of the things that kind of popped in my mind as you were explaining was, I think there's going to be this is happening. There is a culling.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
I'm not frozen. I'm just faking.
That people.
Oh,
Are we
wait.
frozen? Oh.
You froze for like 10 seconds.
We heard culling, and that's it.
Oh.
It was great, man. You were like,
The sound effects. There we go. We're back. And we're back.
You believe that there's a culling happening?
Yeah, no, I think there's a culling of marginal Christianity is what I was saying. I think I don't think in two ways. One, within the church as like a collective body, the people who were flighty with their faith, unintentional with it, I think they've already begun to or have made a decision on, this is something that matters to me or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to, as difficult as this is in this season, as clunky as it is to be part of a community that's online, this matters to me and I'm taking it seriously. I think there's going to be a separation of the sheep and the goats, so to speak, there's just been a lot of people who attend church but aren't the church.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to cut some of that away. It's going to cut some of the fat. I also think it's going to cut it not just around us, as far as people who are marginal, but I think it's going to be a calling of marginal Christianity inside of all of us too. Just areas of, again, those things that you were speaking to, Mike, about the distractions, about the ways we medicate ourselves, the ways that we distract ourselves, the way, all those things. We all do that. It's not just those who don't know the Lord. Like I've found this war within me in this last season of just how much of my strength wasn't from the Lord. It was from disciplines or things in my life, like, that matter, that aren't sin, but like losing the gym, losing basketball, losing.
So let me ask this. I'm just gonna just jump in, but yes or no, like stronger or weaker? Do you feel stronger in your faith than you did 9 weeks ago, or weaker in your faith?
I feel more committed.
So stronger. You don't feel worse than you were 8 weeks ago.
I feel like my claws have dug into the cross harder than they were. I feel like my grip's tighter than it ever was.
Yeah.
Dan,
what do you?
I definitely would say I feel stronger in my faith. There's something else I want to say, but I'm not sure I want to say it in answer to that question, because I want to hear Anthony's question or answer to it too. But I would say stronger for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Me stronger. Yeah.
But let me follow that though. Like,
we haven't had corporate worship. We haven't had corporate communion. We haven't been able to go to our regular routine where we feel someone lift us up, encourage us to be around. We haven't had that.
Yeah. I feel stronger, or not. I feel more committed, and like I have a firmer grip.
Yeah.
I do not feel though fuller. Like
Yep.
this feels like a fast. This feels like I have flushed out. God has flushed out a bunch of stuff that I quite love and enjoy and wouldn't mind having back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's flushed that out, and now I've had to make decisions about what to do with that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found, like, again, like I'm more convinced and convicted and committed for another seat than I was. But there's a hunger in me that actually is reserved for the body, like that. I think it's gonna kick into gear some other phase here. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Dan, what were you gonna say?
Well, it does, and I'd like to just release something here to the three of you guys as it's a word in me, and I just want to let it out, because I've been finding myself asking God all through this time, what are you preparing me for?
Yes.
Like, what the heck are you preparing me for? Because I know you're working on me, and I feel like what I've been hearing back from him is I've actually slowed you down so you can start paying attention to what I've been doing. And I believe that we're going to come out of this. I believe, like, I'm more of a prophet guy, and you guys are apostles and pastors and so on, and Anthony's a prophet guy. But, I feel the church is going to see something that's going to blow her mind. And she's going to realize what God's been preparing her for. But we are going to walk into something God's already renovated. Like we think.
Dan, you got to share. Why don't you share? Can you share that dream? Like,
yeah, I would love to.
We're hanging on to that. I mean, that's been informing our mentality.
Yeah.
Like, share it with Mike and the listeners. They need to, let's just have conversation.
Sure. Yeah. I dreamt that I was in our church building.
When?
What's that?
When did you dream this?
Oh, this was like a year ago. I think it was like
last fall.
It was early fall. Yeah. Early fall of 2019. Dreamt that that I was in our church building, but there was actually two more stories that we had built onto our facility, and our facility was actually in the center of our city also, which it isn't, but that's where it was in the dream. So we had built two levels above our current worship center, and I was responsible to host this dedication prayer time in our new renovated facility. And so I had gathered one of those little CD players, and that was going to be our worship soundtrack for our prayer meeting.
So Nova was covering the production. I get it. Okay, good. Going.
Yeah, that's what was on the front of the CD player.
You guys are world class.
So I had this little CD player, and I was expecting, like, 10, 15 people to come to this prayer of dedication in our newly renovated area. So I went out to go get those people outside of the building. And when I went out and started inviting people to come to this prayer of dedication, hundreds of people, maybe 1,000 or more, started following me. And I got really nervous because I wasn't ready for that size of a crowd. So I'm trying to run ahead of them, but I'm trying to act relaxed. And I'm saying, yeah, come on, let's go. Come on, join me back at the church. And I'm running ahead of them to get there first so I can set something up. So I go running into the building and I run upstairs and I'm looking for my little CD player. And when I get to the top of the stairs, I walk out into this amazing renovated facility, like massive hall concert, or not concert, but a concert area. But then this other lounge area to the side. And for some reason, there was a fully stocked bar and restaurant. I don't totally get that, but there it was. And I walked into the main area. I'm still looking for my little CD player. There's people everywhere. My guests haven't even arrived yet. And I walk into this lounge area where we're supposed to pray. And somebody had hired a string quartet. And they were getting all warmed up and everybody was dressed, looking beautiful. And a woman that I know in the church, I really respect her. She said, you don't even need to host this prayer gathering. You just sit down and enjoy yourself. We got it covered. And she starts leading this and all the guests are showing up. There's plenty of room. I never did find my CD player. and that was the end of the dream. And I really came away. And as I shared it with Anthony and Brent, and we prayed into it some, and the Lord's been really speaking to us over this time. It's just been this realization that God has renovated something that we're going to walk into.
Yes.
And, in the first couple of weeks of being locked down here, I was, fretting over things and trying to fix everything and trying to work everything out. And I felt God saying to me, you're trying to fix things that have already been fixed.
Yeah.
You're concerning yourself with doing work that's already been done.
Mm.
You just need to trust me. You're going to come out of this and you're going to walk into something that's going to blow your mind.
Mm.
But he is preparing us for it. Like the thing he's doing in us will make sense when we see what we're walking into.
And the tools of yesterday, the old stereos are not going to cut it. And they're going to be laughable.
Yep.
We've got to step into what God has prepared and what God has created and to fully engage it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there's been times where, Dan, we've kind of referred to that dream because we're seeing that unfold before our eyes. We Facebook streamed and we had some internet presence, but we just kind of had this little stereo and then boom, this thing happens. And it seems like God had this whole renovated thing already set for us.
Yeah.
Went before us. And now, we're getting 30,000 views a week, like or a weekend, not a week, a weekend. We're getting 100,000 views some weeks. Like it's insane. And it's just way beyond what we could have done. And I think that's just one picture, but I think that it's going to be the renovation's going to be even more, it's going to be even more bigger. It's going to be even bigger than just, like our preaching and public platform stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be more, it's going to be like in the complete, it's going to be in the assembly and in the makeup and the building of the building of the church.
Yeah. I really believe the Lord is saying to the church, I've taught you to surf, own it. And he's going to start dropping us out in the middle of the ocean with these massive waves. Like you've seen those videos of guys out in the middle of the ocean surfing these giant waves. And, it's the same surfing. It's just a bigger wave, right? And I believe God's saying, I've taught you to surf. So you can't afford to be in too much awe of the size of the wave I'm going to get you to ride.
I think, I had a friend in Ontario, a great mentor, say, church plants are now equal with everybody else because we just removed all our buildings from the equation. And he's a guy, I know his mortgage on his building, not utilities, not salaries, just his mortgage is $1,000 a day. And
wow.
And I was like, yeah, but what I like about this is it's simplifying. We make church so complicated. I was in Wisconsin, this mega church, and the lead pastor was talking to me and he was envious of me. I was getting ready to plant Nova. And I remember thinking, your lobby is bigger than most churches in Canada. And he's like, oh, I'd kill to go back to those days. Everything was so simple, just preaching and loving people. I remember thinking, yeah, I'd trade with you right now. And but there's something about again, stripping away what matters.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like we're thank God for buildings. We believe we're going to get a building, and that's all great, and it's important, and legacy, and reaching. But it's just stripping things down, like you said, surfing. We keep saying in our church that we're jet skis. Just turn on a dime. Just no matter how big we get, no matter how. Let's keep simple. And what I like about this season is just like 1 week's not the same as the next, right? Remember, like no more than 20 people. Then 10. Now they're saying if you go back, you know, may not be going back till 2021, but you can't sing. And then I'm like, no one has a corner on this. You've got to be light on your feet. You've got to be light in your spirit. You got to just ride the wave, right? And if you're committed more to just this is the way I serve, you ain't gonna make it. And
surf it or sink, right? Like
spirit-led is a term over. You know, we've used it. Now we don't use it. I don't know if we use it much anymore. But God, what are you saying? I'm listening. Yeah. What are you saying? And I believe God will tell us start things when no one else is starting, end things when no one else is ending. Like again, Brent, I know you're not, you know, plugging it that much, but you opening that web page is God speaking to you. Who knows what that is for? But you know, pride's not your issue. It's none of that. East Coast, false humility. But we were just saying before we went on that God told you to start that, and He did. We need your voice, and God told me to shut mine down. And the thing is, why we heard God speak for what season we're in. That's why you can't copy what someone's doing online or some. Thank God for podcasts and blogs and books. We've got to get back to God's taught us to surf or listen to His voice, and we need it. What God's saying to me might not be what He's saying to, you know, someone down the street. We've got to get back to the simple thing of God. What are you saying this week? And then, you know, how many people preached 2020 vision for this year?
If you did, you were sleeping.
What was coming? Did you preach 2020 vision?
I prophesied in the 2020 vision. I said it's going to be a year of refinement.
Wow.
And that specifically that God's invitation is that if we persist through resistance, like that, like we're going to feel resistance, and there's going to be, I felt really strong, like there's going to be this moment of fight or flight. And like, it's in that moment, we need to remember that God said, if you persist in resistance, like there'll be breakthrough on the other side. Like that, you know, resist the devil and he will flee. So, and
that's you hearing the voice of God, not because it looked good on some design that you saw from some church in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, that was one of our words for 2020 was just that it's going to be a year of refinement. It's also one of the things we felt that it was going to be like we call it a Jehu season, where this is going to be a year where like there's some victory that happens, where we stand over things that stood over us for a long time. And the interesting thing about that is what I'm wondering is like that this is like that God is bringing victory in the church. Like I'm even thinking about, man, did idolatry of a certain church model stand over the church for a while? Did marginality, like marginal Christianity, stand over the church for a while? And this is a time where the Lord is causing us to rise up. I mean, we are forced, like you just said, we are being forced right now to figure out how to be the church without buildings, without programs, without like, you literally, and our people don't know this even yet. So if you're watching, you're getting the early edition, but we are literally going to roll out an entire sweeping organizational shift that's taken right out of Acts 2:42, and we're calling it like the basically the 242 Reformation, where we are going to like say we're going to structure ourselves this way, and this is how we're going to be able to move through whatever happens, you know, in around us. And that's, I think God's saving us from our buildings. Mm-hmm. I think He's saving us from the old wineskins.
Let me ask you this, without hopefully not changing it too much, because we talked about negative and news and negative and all that. What's been the highlight of the season for each of us? What's been the highlight?
Let's not all just jump for joy.
I think it's the relief of knowing, like, to me, the relief of being reminded that Jesus is building His church, and that I can let the things I was building fall away, and I don't have to be depressed about that. It was it felt so good to just lean back into how stable that is.
Yeah.
And I remember after our first worship night that we did on Facebook Live, you know, and we had like some crazy number of people watch it. I don't know, it was like, I don't know how many. Anyway, we just had like 7,000 views or something eventually on it, I think 6,000, something like that, some crazy thing. But I remember when the broadcast was done, I was standing in the middle of our worship center. There was just a couple of us in the room, and the thing finished on the stage, and enjoyed this beautiful time online with everybody, chatting with them and enjoying this worship time. Everything shut off. I turned around and looked at our worship center that I thought was big before that. And I said, this place is so small. I became aware of how big the church is. Like,
Yes.
And so I just want to say it's been a relief to remember how big the church is, and is so far beyond anything I can actually manage.
Yeah.
That's been a relief to me.
I'm gonna go next, I think, because just that moment that you referenced, right? That first worship set that we had, just super simple. I think it was keyboard, David on keyboard and Seth on guitar. And literally for like an hour and 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is, I wept. That's it. That's all I did for that time. And it was, I feel like there's this thing that's happening in my life where I found the Lord to be so present and so near throughout this. Not to say that there hasn't been, I mean, obviously we've been talking and there's lots of frustrations and good days and bad days, but there's this way that the Lord's been drawing, he's been meeting me in this way that's so near and so tender that it's honestly like, it's not like it's never happened before, but maybe not with this consistency. And so I found that, and that's been a word, intimacy with the Lord has been like, if King's Church has heard me talk, you know, through some format, you've likely heard me say something about intimacy with the Lord. Well, that's definitely something in this season that it's very much part of my journey, and I value that, and it's been deeper and richer. There have been moments where I'm, you know, in this room, right, with the Lord, and it's been, you know, very moving, and it's my secret place, right? And so I've definitely found that that's a absolute highlight for me from this season for sure.
Yeah. I think the personal, like the personal stuff for sure, Amon, there's definitely a lot of highs and lows. Highs being, I think the Lord's removed a lot of training wheels. Again, like sources of strength I had that were wisdom and good things, honestly, like physical, like going to the gym, my spiritual, the state of my soul and my spirit is very connected to my physiology. And so like playing basketball, I had outlets, I had a really, oh man, my annual calendar was a thing of beauty. It really was. It was a finely tuned, beautiful machine that kept me sane for many years. Like people have wondered and worried about me because I've had a lot on my shoulders at a young age, and like a lot of it's been good relationships around me and good rhythms and disciplines that have just made me healthy. And a lot of those things just went away. And so this has caused me to really have a real raw, am I strong in the Lord and the strength of his might? And finding areas where I'm weak, and I had an artificial strength that the Lord wants me to find strength in him in this season.
That's good.
And those aren't bad things. They're not bad things. I will be going back to the gym. I will be playing basketball again for sure. But it's just exposed, by God's grace, it's just exposed some areas of weakness. As a family, same thing, right? Like you get kind of lost in the rhythms and the flows of your life, and you have a level of health that's in some ways artificial. And when you get forced in a home with your kids for months
I felt that one. I
Did
felt
you
that
feel
one.
it? You are you
Can't
are
believe
you
it's only
have,
Sunday. Can't
you
believe it's
have to
only
deal,
Sunday.
I know
Yeah.
you have to deal with reality. And again, that's been a highlight, I would say, in that, like, okay, it's real. It's clarity. It's clarifying. It really is refining. I would say, though, as from a life and leadership standpoint, I'm in a zone now where the most energizing, exciting part of this, and it's connected to the hardest part. So I want to loop back around. So I want to talk about that in a second. We're not going to get to angels and demons tonight. You guys are going to come back on in 2 weeks and we're going to do it. Okay. So I felt like obviously the Lord had a different plan for us tonight. And this has been good.
It's been good.
But I'm in a zone as far as highlights. I now have fully embraced this, exhausting as it is, this sense of, wow, we are living in a moment that is history shaping. And
Love that.
30 years from now, some of the decisions that we're making, we're going to celebrate. And my kids are going to benefit from. And just like getting like the startup entrepreneur, apostle, warrior in me is really energized by how blown up everything is. Like there's parts everywhere and we get to build something new.
True. You know.
Woo!
For me, it's been the simplicity. I got into this not for a position. I don't mean that sarcastic that other people are. I never wanted to be a lead pastor because of so much of it has to deal with, it has to, salaries and refixing parking lots and air conditioning units and how do you navigate, more waivers and insurance. That's a part of it. But I got into this, like ministry at a young age to slay giants, right? There's something about that. And my youth pastor said to me, he's like, Mike, if you solve problems, you'll always have work. And I feel like in God's presence, whenever I feel God's presence, I cry, or I feel like I want to go fight something. And I like killing giants.
Yes.
And in this season, our church has been remarkable. Our giving has not suffered, and that is a testament to our people and God's presence. And I feel like whenever there's a problem, it's like that's a giant for us. Literally, I'm hearing about the cancer ward in Halifax, and they're saying 2 parents can't stay, 1 has to leave, and the one that's staying can't have visitors, but if they leave, they can't come back. And I'm like, what? How are these kids that are 7 and 8? We know kids in there. And I'm like, what can we do to solve that? I'm like, church, can we buy iPads for the IWK? Like, let's go buy iPads. I see a report that homeless people have nowhere to use the washroom in Halifax because all the Tim Hortons are shut down and businesses. So I call the mayor going, can we pay for porta potties? And I love this season that it's like, if there's a problem, that we can answer it. And it feels like it's stripped away from planning center. And we do all that. And production and messages and series and promo, and there's so many problems. It's like there's no lack of opportunity to kill giants. It's like, can we kill loneliness and do online small groups? Can we kill poverty? Can we help that school get more kids online so they can keep doing school? Can we help pay for that funeral of that person? That has been the simplicity of the gospel of for those that are brokenhearted, those that are in prison, those that are blind, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to solve problems. And and because of the schedule being stripped away, it's like we have all this time just to solve problems. And I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I've been loving that. But that's been connected. And I'd love to kick this around. That's been connected to the hardest part for me, or like the area where the Lord has shown me something that needs to be crucified. And that, like, it's connected to that thing. So I'm the same as you, Mike. Holy Spirit shows up and I'm either ready to take up arms or weep. There's really not many other things I do when I feel like just the anointing. But one of the challenges for me, just getting real raw and honest, has been letting go of having to be the guy or the church that cooks up the new thing that saves the day and works, and really really, I've been having a lot of long walks and talks with the Lord and just saying, God, you put that warrior thing in me. You put that dreamer thing in me. I know you called me to slay giants. You called me to be part of significant things, but to see the subtle way where I almost connect my own value to that problem solving. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's like, there's been a death that's been taking place in me, where the Lord is trying to pull out of my hands the grip I have on, but hopefully we figure it out, we figure this thing out and we have the answers. And like, there's something the Lord's revealed, like, we go back to that dream that Dan had. I've had to surrender the fact that this renovation is something that the Lord has built and the Lord is building. And yes, we get to be part of it, but we are not the architect and we are not the foreman. We get to pick up a hammer and swing and be part of this, but the Lord's just really showed some things in me. And honestly, the big frustrations and fears have been connected to that. I don't know if you felt this, Mike, but I'd say for the first time in my, however long I've been doing this now as a lead pastor, 8 years, I've not known what to do. Like I've really not just intuitively known. Like I've been pretty good in crisis. My whole leadership it started in crisis. And this one though, where there's so little information, again, everything changes overnight. I haven't known what to do. And there's been like, the Lord has just ripped control out of my hands.
Wow.
And that's been a difficult but liberating thing. Because I would say, like, I waver. I go between, jumping back in and getting my hands on it and just being open-handed and just saying, God, take these hands today. If you want to give me an idea, I want to do it. And, but that there's been an idol there. There's been that's been the hardest part, is just the Lord bringing clarity in that area. And me, like, Brent, do you want the church to come through this victorious and fruitful, or do you want King's Church and Brent to come through this victorious and fruitful? It's just been a God just revealing some places in my own heart where it's like, well, no, I want to win. Yeah, I want everyone to win, but I kind of want us to win a little more. And that's been I think that's a thing that if a pastor doesn't deal with that at some level, I think they're lying. But God has really drawn me out to say,
if I can speak into that and just take my liberty, just even that to have that conversation shows a healthy spot. There's a difference between calling and kingdom, and I don't mean kingdom as in the big K with church, but David held the kingdom lightly, but his calling tightly. So he didn't fight for it when Saul had it. He walked away. And when Absalom wanted, he walked away. But he really valued his calling because he was a king when he was still in the cave. And what I've seen on your life is you've embraced the calling to be an influencer, even in the nation and in the region. Some people, I'll just say it, some people are threatened by new churches. And the test for us is when the next big church comes into Halifax and they got momentum and they're the creative one and they're the cool one, and how will we be with them? That's why Pastor AJ has been so good. They were the most successful church plant in our province, and they have cheered us on and supported us financially, and you've done the same thing. So I see, even what you've done at one conference, you'd have no idea that Kings was really a part of, with the Baptist Association, but really a catalyst. Kings was, if you didn't know, my kids had no idea you guys were involved in that. You weren't on stage. And what do you do? What's the first one of the things you do is you get a local guy to preach at your conference. And I know it's not just your conference. That says a lot that you're having that conversation, but, not to puff you up, but I think you're passing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. But there's just, I'll just say from a real vulnerable spot, like I think this is going to be such a sovereign move of God in this hour. And it's going to be too holy and too hot for me to go in thinking. I just think the Lord is trying to posture me and position me with a new level of just sanctity for what he's doing, to just show me some little spaces in my soul where maybe I connect too much of my own personal value. And like, am I cool? Am I, it's that's such a leading question, Mike, is like, how are you, Mike, when someone shows up in Halifax and they eclipse Nova and they eclipse you?
I won't know till it happens.
I
What
know.
I'm thankful for is I've seen it modeled by leaders ahead of me. So it almost makes me have to.
Yeah.
But I've seen it done. It only gives me more courage in it, right?
But that I think is what the Lord's doing in me. Let me say that is he's taking me through what I know you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And what I'm, what the right thing to say is, to where like, if there was ever any wanting in me that was wanting the wrong things, I feel like the Lord has given me such a desire for revival.
Yeah.
That I don't care about my life and I don't care about King's Church. Like I just want to see, I want to see like the kingdom break in. I think he's just rooting out a little bit whatever was left of Brent's kingdom. I feel like he's just pulling it out, and it's been awesome but hard.
It's amazing what was your focus 12 weeks ago on the top of the email list. It's amazing how that doesn't seem to be there right now.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, sorry to get all emotional on you guys.
Oh man. Very powerful.
I'm used to crying. I listen to One Direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I love your heart, right? And that's why if we keep surrounding ourselves with people with the right heart, that's what's been beautiful with this season. Like, people that are embracing shouldn't be embracing. It's like cross-party lines, cross-denominational lines, cross-age lines. Like, the three on this call have been such a highlight for me personally. And I just think God's drawing relationships together that are thinking these things, that are feeling these things, that would literally give anything to see the other person win, to see God's kingdom move, to reach people. I don't know. I just see it like refining, going back to your word. Just a purity is happening in motives, in operation, in budget, in how we're helping people. I just say bring the purity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys, I mean, we'll be done in a second. I mean, this has been really refreshing. I'm just encouraged to have the conversation. I'm glad some other people could jump on this with us. But, as you guys we're coming into Pentecost. What are you guys hearing? What are you hearing in the spirit? What are you hearing? I know we throw the R word around a lot, but I'm convinced I know there's something unprecedented on the other side of this, because this thing is unprecedented. And that tells me that the Lord is going to slingshot some kingdom activity on the other side of this. It's going to be so sweeping. What are you guys hearing? What do you have your radar up for right now? Coming into Pentecost, coming in through this season.
Anthony and I were sitting and chatting here in my office a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about what the church, what the bride of Christ is going to look like coming out of this time. And a phrase just dropped in my head, who is that coming out of the wilderness? And I said to Anthony, what is that? I think it's from Song of Solomon. And is that the beloved, or is it the lover? Who is that? And so I just Googled it. And the scripture is out of, is it chapter or Song of Solomon 8:5?
Yep,
and the question is, who is this coming up out of the wilderness leaning on her beloved? That's the question. And I got halfway through reading it and I started to weep. And it was like we were both sitting there kind of with tears coming out of our eyes, thinking, oh, my soul, that's how the bride is going to come out of this time. She's going to be leaning on her beloved. And so to me, the next 2 weeks, what I feel is going to happen is the church is going to be unveiled in the next 2 weeks. I literally believe we're going to be seeing in the next 2 weeks churches all over the world their expectancy is going to be growing leading up to Pentecost Sunday. And I think people are going to be so sick of hearing that we're going to see a massive breakthrough and outpouring of the Holy Spirit. People are going to be so sick of hearing it, but the expectancy is going to grow.
Right.
I think it's really going to make our heads spin how everybody's talking about it. And when the bride comes out of this time, I think we're all going to be looking at it going, who is this? And she's leaning on her beloved. Like she is leaning on Jesus like she never has. The world's going to say it.
Right.
We've forgotten all about Jesus, but that's all these people can talk about. Anyway, that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Story.
For me, I think about Pentecost, you know, how the disciples were nobodies. Like the world didn't know them. In fact, they didn't even recognize them. Were you with him? And then, people always say, who are these uneducated fishermen, no name? And we always like to think of ourselves as the disciples. But I think out of this, I think what the Spirit's there's going to be people that are going to be leading our churches, be the voice, the face, the driving force for church growth. And I don't mean in numbers, but I mean in influence that we don't know who they are now.
Right.
And I'd like to think I'm a disciple, but I might have a little Pharisee in me going, whoa, it's going to happen through us. I'm excited that there's going to be people that were, media stars or no name this or in this part of culture that God's going to call out during this season that we didn't know 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 3 months ago. And it's going to be a turning. I honestly believe revival is not going to happen around an altar. I think it's going to happen in the streets. And for so long, revival very rarely looks like the one before it. And, whether it be the charismatic or, Toronto Blessing or Brownsville, it's running to the church. I think the church is going to run into culture like a like a Daniel or Joseph anointing. And instead of criticizing government, school boards, businesses, arts and, and culture and television, people are going to go in like Daniel and change it from the inside. I think people are going to have a revelation of Christ in this time. And they're going to go, no, I'm here for such a time as this. And I think revival is going to happen outside of our church buildings. Isn't it interesting? What got removed in this was our church buildings.
Yeah.
And they're saying 2021, we couldn't have an altar service if we wanted to right now. I'm a good Pentecostal boy. There's no shofars and modesty blankets even possible right now. But I think there's going to be a revival of in culture going, we're not criticizing anymore, we're solving. Wow. And Daniel wasn't criticizing his king. He said, I can help. Joseph, when he proclaimed his own dream, got put into a pit. But when he interpreted another man's dream, he got put into the palace. And I think God's going to raise people up going, it's not about me and what I want to do and my calling. And it's going to be, I'm going to go solve problems. And I think influence is going to happen. We're going to see people in arts and business, news anchors, entrepreneurs, and God's going to use them to have these revivals in coffee houses and parliament and TV. That's what I see happening. The people going, they're not qualified for this, but the Spirit of God will come on them in this season. And they're going, they're not smart enough. They're not trained enough. They don't know enough. But the Spirit of God's going to put them in places that they wouldn't have belonged 3 months ago. I believe that's going to happen.
No mistake. This is going to be
Awesome.
This is going to be a global awakening. I'm convinced of it. And that means like you look at the last, there's been two great awakenings really in the last 2 millennia, right? Like two kind of sweeping great awakenings. And they didn't happen in the church. They swept across, like countries and continents and change, like the awakening that swept through England. People credit Wesley for changing the course of England, like in Parliament, like that actually shifted Wesley and Whitfield. They actually shifted that whole like country. And I think this is going to be just like exactly what you're saying. The Lord is going to be so gripping and so gravitational. Again, will there still be darkness? Yes, there will be until Jesus returns. But I think this is going to be a recapturing. And I think the kingdom of God is going to take a foothold in areas that either have been long lost or never taken before. So we're praying into it. I'm gonna starting Wednesday, gonna call our church to 10 days, just 10 days of fasting and prayer into Pentecost. Just that God would do a fresh outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and that's I'm expecting it.
Amen.
Ant, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so yes to everything that you're saying. Two things that I want to say them out loud: maturity and consecration, just so I don't get distracted and down one rabbit hole. But just really the things that the things that have been on my heart, and I know that Dan and I've had lots of conversations, and even Brent and I and Dan have had conversations about maturity and calling and for some reason in my brain it goes like this, like it's like you could say the church, but I'm actually in my brain it's actually the bride of Christ, right? It's for some reason it's that, but it's the bride is called to maturity, and maturity in that she's out of, like in Hebrews when it talks about, it talks about calling out, not eating milk, but moving to meat and actually dealing with more mature things and rising up in authority, and not not cowering to powers, and not acting like an orphan. And she's regal, and she's risen up in her authority, and she's standing upright, and almost like there's a transformation that has to happen. Like the bride must be mature. She must know her authority. She must know her place. She must know that she's seated with Christ in heavenly places, right? So these are things that are just burning within me, right? So, and along with that, there's the consecration. There is the things that the Lord's pruning off. There is the not winking at dysfunction and sin, and not winking at it. There's a purity and a holiness that is being restored to the church, and it's this consecration, that to be set apart, in spite of what that actually looks like. But it's actually, the thing about holiness is that it's the lie is that you're giving up all these things for what? The lie is that it's like you're actually losing out, but it's actually you're saying a bigger yes to something that's actually far greater and far more imaginable than the things that you're actually giving up. Yeah. So I think for me, like maturity in the body, and specifically the bride of Christ, rising up in maturity, and consecration, like being set apart. These are the things that like just are like burning within me, right? And they make that sound too. I'm just giving you that heads up. but yeah, for sure.
If you stop and if you're standing there, Anthony, and you like are really quiet, you can actually hear an audible. It's there all the time.
I get sound too, but it's not revival.
The sound of yearning. It's the sound of yearning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, this has been a ton of fun. It's been it's been encouraging. I mean, I'd like to get the four of us back on. I'm actually preaching in the gospel series here in another couple weeks on how good news, Jesus conquered the enemy. So maybe that's a better time to talk about spiritual, angels, demons, spiritual warfare, all that kind of thing. Because I think that is definitely of interest for people. So I'd love to loop back around. Mike, it's been so fun to have you on, man. Thank you.
I have a song for us to listen to as we leave. Whenever you're ready, I have the playlist.
Are we going to get shut down off YouTube is the question. Well, if we haven't already, we're probably going to be fine, right? If they haven't already silenced us.
Well, it's just, you're making fun of me, but it's my One Direction playlist. I love you guys.
Okay. All right, make it stop. Make it stop.
Yeah. You have a little window before it.
You guys gonna catch the last installments of The Last Dance?
Yes, sir.
That's my Mondays.
Me too.
What's TV? I don't know.
You haven't. There's that yearning. There's that sound.
I heard it.
The Chicago Bulls intro song still makes me shudder when I hear it.
The what song?
When they're going to court and they're playing that intro music.
Oh, you don't like that?
Oh, do you have it there?
No. Next time, I'll get it on my little sample.
I was a Pistons fan, but still, it does things.
Don't have it. Oh man, greatest of all time. I think there's no. It's been great to see all these Generation Z and millennials who thought that LeBron was the GOAT. Don't think they think that now.
Oh. Not at all. And this conversation just keeps taking more turns and more.
It does.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you. Here, cue the outro music, and we will. There you go. Get
Love
your
you, brothers.
Zayn Malik out of here. Thank
guys
you
are
for being on the pod, guys. We'll see you again
Awesome.
here in a
Sounds
couple
good.
weeks.
Be blessed.
Yes.
See you guys.
See ya.